Sextortion killed my son.
Sextortion is when an adult entices a child to produce a sexually explicit image of themselves and send it to them over the internet.
From the time Gavin was contacted by his sextortionist till he took his own life was how long?
1 hour and 40 minutes.
1 hour and 40 minutes. That's how deadly a game we're playing here. America, we have a problem. Our virtual borders are being breached, and our children are under attack. There is a dangerous and silent predator out there, one that is entering your home without your permission and threatening the well-being and, in the most extreme cases, the lives of your teen boys. Tonight, we're exposing an alarming and growing trend, one you probably have never even heard of, one that is specifically targeting your teenage young men, sextortion.
Sextortion is when an adult coerces or entices a child to produce a sexually explicit image of themselves and send it to them over the internet. Once the offender gets a single image of a child, typically they'll use that image to coerce the child to produce more and more under threats of sending that image to friends at school, names on a contact list, or even the parents. Any child can be a victim of this crime, whether they're on the honor roll, whether they're a star athlete, boys or girls, but we have to encourage them to make smart decisions when they're online.
The rise of teen boys being sextorted is a dark reality in which predators are cashing in on the stage of their brain development, their lack of real-life relationships, lack of impulse control, parental ignorance, and most importantly, the deterioration of the American family unit. That's right, I said it. These evil and relentless predators have figured out a way to take advantage of our society's weaknesses to prey on and, in the most tragic instances, murder our young men. How? Well, let me tell you, these days, nuclear families are more disconnected than ever. It isn't that the parents don't love their children, of course you all do. But families have stopped eating dinner together, stopped having game or movie nights, and family discussions are often just non-existent. And when families do spend time together, it seems everyone is buried in their phones or their iPads or laptops. Sextortionists are determined and remorseless. So parents, put your phones down, gather your family together, hold them close, and listen up. Because what you learned tonight could save your son's life. Now, Tim and Tamia know exactly what these evil predators are capable of.
My 17-year-old son, James, was a wonderful child.
He ran track, 110 hurdles and the 300 hurdles.
James was on track to be #1 in the state of Ohio for Division II.
But he never got a chance to run his senior year.
He did the unthinkable, which was take his life. On November 18, 2022, a young lady contacted James on Instagram, asked if he wanted to see her topless, and his answer was yes. Then she said, okay, it's your turn. So he sent her a screenshot. Then the threats immediately started.
They sent him about 200 messages.
They said that they would release his picture to all the social media sites if he didn't send $6,000.
Message after message after message. We didn't know there was a problem until he was gone. November 19th, I get to my house, I see a light on in a room where there shouldn't be a light on. When I walked into the room, I see my son on the floor. I screamed, he didn't respond. I crawled over to him, I shook him a little bit and I laid on him. I just grabbed my phone and called my wife to let her know we just lost our only baby.
Oh man, I lost it because I couldn't understand Where did we go wrong? Like, what happened here? And why is my son gone? We were just dancing. I just told him I loved him and I was proud of him, and my son is gone. I couldn't believe it. Sextortion took my son's life.
Tamia, Tim, I want to thank you both for being here and talking about this. You're going to save lives by what you're doing right now, this minute. Let's talk about what happened. It was November 18th of 22, and James was contacted by a woman on Instagram, correct?
Yes, correct.
The first message was, how old are you and where do you go to school, right? Mm-hmm. So what you would expect from a peer, right? Tim, in piecing this together, how quickly did he discover that it wasn't who he thought it was?
It probably took him I want to say about 4 or 5 hours before he realized that he wasn't talking to the girl anymore.
What was the initial threat?
The initial threat was they were going to expose him to the world. You know, they had his picture. They said, we're going to put it on social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. They were just going to plaster him everywhere.
And that they owned him now.
Yeah.
His life was over.
And to a young man with this shame and this fear, I mean, this was a tremendous burden. What was his reaction?
Yes, extremely stressed. So all he had was cash on him, and it was a little over $100. So they coached him into going to get a gift card, and they video called him again, took the numbers from the gift card, and then had him discarded. But he still owed $200. And he begged if he could have more time. Why would you do this to me? I told you I was an unemployed student. He was literally begging for his life, for them to give him mercy.
When this was going on, like, you were with him at a college fair,
yes.
right? And you guys were together and
yes.
you were dancing and...
Yes, it was an amazing day. Like, we just were planning out his future.
Now, Tim and Tamia say that they had no idea that their son was just hours away from taking his own life when they saw him that morning. So you may think that your child is back in their room doing homework, playing a video game or whatever, and not know that these predators have gotten their hooks into them. And we're going to take a look at what actually happens, how these things go down.
The FBI is tracking these scenarios, bad actors making contact through social media and starting a conversation in direct messages, eventually enticing victims to send compromising photos. Between 2021 and 2022, the FBI reports a more than 200% increase in cases in South Carolina, a 600% increase in North Carolina. Now, experts warn that technology like artificial intelligence or AI will help scammers supercharge virtual sextortion even more.
All right, I'm back with Tim and Tamia, and I wanted to look at exactly what was going on. These people were relentless. And thanks to you, we have some of these texts that we could take a look at. Mm-hmm. They're telling him, I am more determined to rot your life. I remind you, I have no pity to rot your life as well as yours. There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do. He says, I am a man of my word, and trust me, if you pay me $200 and you pay this, I swear on my mom's head that this nude video of you will be deleted forever. If this video of you naked is on the net, you risk having serious problems. So to avoid that, I advise you to do this that I ask you. So in case you try to turn off the camera or run away, I swear to God that you may regret it. Answer me if you really care about your life. If you're young and you feel shame and you're alone, then you feel trapped and you don't know where to turn. You don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. You walked in and found your son.
That is correct.
I can't even, people will tell you, time heals all wounds. You'll get over this. Let me tell you, you will not. You will find a way to accommodate but you'll never get over this, and I'll never tell you you will. You'll find a way to adapt and get through it, but that moment is etched in your mind and heart forever, is it not?
Oh, yes, most definitely. I was told that time heals all wounds, and my response to that is it doesn't. There's a hole that'll never be refilled. That part of me is gone.
Tell me about the phone call when he had to tell you that.
So Tim and I, Tim just got off of work and he had checked in with me like we always do. He was going home, he was gonna talk to James about how the college fair went, and he was really happy. I really heard a good positive vibe in my husband's voice. And not even 5 minutes later, I get another call and I hear tears in his voice, and he told me James is gone, and I'll never forget that because I'm like, what do you mean my son is gone? What happened? And he's like, he's gone. I'm like, can we I was thinking maybe we could take him to the hospital, when he was telling me this, maybe we could fix this, he was like, I gotta call you back, I have to call 911. And so I waited for him to call 911, and then he calls me back, and I'm waiting for him to tell me he's okay. And he was gone. I had to come to truth that my son was gone. Dr. Phil, and that's the worst news you could ever have. That was horrible for me.
When you think about the people that did this for a few $100s and the things that they said to your boy, is there any word other than evil to describe what they did?
They're beyond evil. Beyond evil. It's heartless. They're attacking our children. I thought kids were off limits, and they're not. It's how these grown adults are manipulating our children, are attacking our children, are insinuating and instilling suicidal thoughts into our children. To imagine what my son was going through, that 19 and a half hours that he was being tortured, I would never want any other kid to go through. Oh, I wish I would have known something like this. We are big educators. We talk to James. We are not the parents that say, don't do drugs because we said so. Don't drink alcohol because we said so. We always said, do not do this because here are the consequences. Here is what will happen. If we knew anything about sextortion, our son would be here today.
Yeah, we would have definitely had that conversation. We talked about everything. There was nothing we hid from him. We didn't sugarcoat anything. We gave him all the facts that he could possibly have. And every time when he was in a situation where he needed information, he got the information and made the right decision. This one particular time, it was just one of those times where he didn't have the answers he needed.
And what a fine young man, and
Yes.
Headed forward in his life. He's an accomplished athlete, everything going his way. And they got to him, they can get to anyone.
Anybody.
And that is exactly why I'm here. That's exactly why I'm doing this show. That's exactly why Merritt Street Media is here. And that's exactly why we invited them here to do this, to save lives. Now, tragically, Tim and Tamia are not the only parents to go through this. Our next guest, Brandon, has an all too similar story, and sadly, it is happening to so many more of our sons, and it's happening as we speak. South Carolina Representative Brandon Guffey says that it was just 2 hours between when his son Gavin was contacted by his sextortionist and when he felt he had no other option but to end his life. Now, Brandon says his son showed no signs of distress. Just minutes before, he took his own life, leaving his family blindsided.
Gavin was one of a kind. He was very happy, always wanted to be the class clown. Mine and Gavin's relationship was extremely open. Gavin knew that he could come to me at any time. Gavin received a message from what he thought was a girl. I don't know if the scammer sent images to Gavin, but Gavin obviously sent images to them. And as soon as the images were seen, they sent the photos back to him, trying to get money from him. The night my son killed himself, he would come out of his bedroom and he was being extremely quiet. And I just said, "Night, buddy, I love you." And walked right past him. He walked right into the bathroom. This is the bathroom that Gavin went into. I heard just this loud noise. I ran to the door, I yelled his name, I shouldered the door in, and I thought that he was knocked out. Gavin was laying in between the toilet and the tub. I jumped to him, shouting his name, and I grabbed Gavin, and I put my hand on his artery, and then blood was just flowing. I started screaming, "Sextortion killed my son." I was filled with just so much rage. It is the worst feeling in the world to lose a child. You feel like a failure. Some people want justice. I want vengeance.
Brandon, thank you for being here. You lost your son, Gavin, and you saw no signs from him. This happened so fast. It's terrifying. It's frightening.
It is your worst fear. Imagine your most vulnerable moment. And whenever we got bullied in school or something happened, it was always our word against someone else's. Now, it's not just everyone in your school, it's everyone in every school and everyone within the community that's gonna see this. And that's what's so horrifying to these children.
You know, I've been doing Dr. Phil at the platform for over 20 years. We didn't have these social media platforms when we started, and kids didn't have predators coming at them this way. I've had to change and add these things to the list, and parents need to do the same thing. We need to change the dialogue we're having with our kids.
Absolutely.
And when I say families in America are under attack, I don't think that's an overstatement. Do you?
No, sir. I think we're too busy trying to protect our families from outside physical attacks. And the problem is our children are being attacked in our own homes, in our schools, to where we feel like we are keeping them safe, and they are not. That's where the biggest attacks are coming from.
From the time Gavin was first engaged until he was gone was how long?
1 hour and 40 minutes.
Do y'all all hear that? That's how deadly a game we're playing here. 1 hour and 40 minutes. And we're talking about an intelligent, engaged, competent young man. 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's how powerful the leverage is here.
Yes, sir. And a kid that was far from perfect, but there was nothing that we couldn't talk about. I knew that he had been sexually active. I knew that he had experimented with drugs. We had all the hard conversations. And yet, right before he took his life, he walked right past me. And it's very hard to lose a child, but it's another to know that your child chose to take their life, because you put that responsibility on yourself. And I started looking back and trying to figure it out, and I got a hint that he had been blackmailed, but I didn't know what for. But even at that time, I'm thinking, what could he have done that was so horrific that would cause him to take his life? And whenever I found out the simplicity of the scheme, just rage, that it could be something so simple.
As you say, this was not a young man that wasn't worldly.
Correct.
This was not a naive, noodle-neck bookworm kid that lived in his basement. This kid was out and about.
I've seen this crime. I deal with 1 to 2 phone calls per day with people across the country dealing with this. And I've seen kids as young as 8, and I've seen grown men as old as 70 getting caught up in these schemes. But teenage boys are the primary target right now.
We're going to talk to a 15-year-old young man. He's going to tell his story about being sextorted just 9 months ago. And whether you have children or not, you don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
What would you say to the people who did this?
I'm coming for you. Not just you, anyone like you. You come after our children. I don't care if it's this state, I don't care if it's this country, I don't care if it's anywhere else in the world. It is my passion.
This is an organized crime. Their prime goal is money. There were at least 4 people attacking our son. 3 of them are from the Ivory Coast and 1 of them is here in America.
You could look at the messages, it's like broken English.
In America, our dollar is worth a lot. $10 to them is so much. They can live like kings and queens off of making our children victims.
Well, I'm here with Rick and his mother, Deanna, and we are interviewing them in shadow to protect their identities. Now, Rick was sextorted for close to a month, just 9 months ago, and says the stress of the situation affected him so much, he faked being sick to skip school for a week. How did this start for you?
I got a direct message on Instagram.
How long was it before it got sexual?
10 minutes.
How long before it went to blackmail?
Right then.
Instantly.
Instantly.
The second you responded, bang.
Yes. They asked for a bunch of money and they said if I didn't get it to them, they were going to just send it to a bunch of their friends or my friends.
How long was it before you heard anything about this, Mom?
It went on for about a month before I knew about it. I heard Brandon tell his story about Gavin.
Okay.
So I shared Gavin's story with both of my younger children to let them know what evils are out there.
Right.
And it was the next morning that he came to me and said that what was happening to Gavin was happening to him.
What did you think when you heard that?
I was thinking maybe it was okay to go to her. I thought about it that night, and then in the morning I decided just to get it out there and tell her.
Now, while this was going on, because you're very young, so you don't know how to move money around, get money, do this or that or the other. So they were coaching you how to do this, right?
Yes.
What were they telling you?
They were demanding it, and when I said I couldn't do it, they were counting down, and I had to make up an excuse and then figure out a way to get it to them. It was just get the money or I'm posting it.
What did they ask for first? How much?
$100.
Just $100? Yeah. And did they promise if you do that, we're done?
Yes. Yes, they did.
And did you do that?
Yes.
And what happened as soon as you paid the 100?
They asked for more money, and I figured that they would keep asking. So I kept extending, getting the time extended, held it out for as long as I could.
Rick says they actually started a countdown when they were going to leak the photos. They're counting down to the point where, okay, we're going to ruin your life. That's how cold and relentless these people are, and they're doing this to kids. Talk to me about the lowest point during this time. We've seen that there have been a number of suicides in this situation. Was there ever a point where you felt like there's no way out of this?
Yes, I was very depressed. I had no energy. I barely talked to my friends, and I had always talked to them. But I talked to my one friend about it, and he helped me with it.
At the point that he did tell you, okay, I'm caught up in this, what was your reaction?
My first reaction was I told him how proud I was that he was brave enough to come to me. It's one of those fears as a parent that all I could imagine was how scared he was and what he had been going through alone.
And tell me where you were 5 minutes after you had told her versus 5 minutes before you told her. What was the difference in your life?
Before I had told her, I was in my room, I was thinking if I really should tell her or not. I was just down, and then after I told her, I was sitting in the room with her, and I felt relieved to get it off my chest.
You weren't alone anymore?
No, I wasn't.
Have you ever heard the old saying that if something seems to be too good to be true, then it probably is too good to be true? Did you wonder at the time that, hey, I've been talking to this girl for 10 minutes and
yes,
she's certainly opening up to me?
I did wonder if it was or not. I wasn't thinking at the time.
What would you say to young men out there right now if something like this happens?
Take time. You need to be patient. That's not what everything's about. And watch out for bad grammar, and just if that's what they want to talk about. As soon as they start messaging you, then it's probably a fake.
If they get trapped in it, would you tell them to go to their parents?
Yes. I don't think anyone should have to go through that alone like I did. It's always better to talk to someone about that.
It took a lot of courage to get here and talk about this. I can't thank you enough for being here. Next, we're going to talk to another teen who was sextorted in April of 22. Nico says he did his research and still fell into the trap. More on this after the break. 16-year-old Nico and his mother, Sue Ann, are joining us virtually. Like Rick and his mother, they are also in shadow to keep their identities anonymous. So thank you for joining us, Nico and Sue Ann.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Nico, can you tell us how this began and how quickly it flipped from what you thought it was to what it turned out to be?
So I was first contacted in April of 2022 on Snapchat, and I believe that it was a girl, supposedly my age, and they messaged me first directly on Snapchat saying, where did I go to school? And it started off pretty innocent, but in 10 minutes, probably it turned sexually just like that. It was very fast for how fast it turned.
Right. And once you responded, how quickly did the demands for money and the threats of exposure come?
So I ended up blocking the user after I sent an explicit picture of myself to them after they sent one of them first. But they ended up messaging me basically right after with the picture of me demanding, I believe it was $300 at first. But it was probably 20 minutes after I ended up blocking them.
Okay. How many demands did you get from them?
I believe it just started first at $300, but I told them that, I was a teenager and that I didn't have any way to get them any money, but they just kept demanding even more. And eventually I got them to bring it down because I just kept saying that, I'm a teenager, I don't have any way to get money. And so I believe they said, all right, that's okay, just give me $150 and I'll stop messaging you and I'll delete this photo.
When the threat came, what did you think was going to happen?
I was very, very scared. I thought that if this picture got out, because they threatened to send it to all the people I knew, all of my friends, my family, my school, that I just thought that my life would just be turned upside down, that it would just be over, and that my career and anything I wanted to do would just be ended right there.
Sue Ann, he ultimately came to you. What did he say?
I had gotten some fraud alerts on my debit card that morning. And so he had been at school and we were kind of texting and I said, hey, I got this fraud alert. Was this you? And he's like, no. And then he said he was hoping to send some money to a friend for a birthday that he had played video games with online. And I said, no, we don't just send kids money for their birthdays. And then eventually he kept saying, well, that's not the real story. And then he came up with something else. And then eventually he got to it and said, I did something dumb. I don't know what to do. Please help. and told me that he had sent a picture and to someone, and they were blackmailing him with it.
And what was your initial reaction when he told you that?
Well, my initial thought was, how could you do something like this dumb? We talked about online safety, but my initial reaction was, he's a good kid, he's smart, he's a good student, and it was, I'm going to help you. We're going to fix this. We're going to do what we can. Don't worry. And I went up to the school and said, I'm on my way. We're going to figure this out.
Sue Ann says that Nico's father's boss put them in touch with a dear friend of mine, James McGibney, who helps sextortion victims. And we're going to talk to him right after the break.
Representative Brandon Guffey learned scammers targeted his son. Guffey fought back, championing Gavin's law in South Carolina.
This is not just a problem in South Carolina. This is not just a problem in the United States. This is a problem globally.
Well, James McGibney is here. He helped Nico out of his jam, but that's not the only thing he's been doing. James takes on over about 150 cases just like his every month. Every month. And that's probably a conservative estimate. James does all this for free, by the way, and I'd like to hear his advice on how to avoid this scam and what to do if you find yourself being blackmailed online. Now, this is probably one of the most underreported scams going on right now because people are ashamed about it.
That's right. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to come on stage and tell America this. A lot of parents are ashamed to do so, and they don't want to get out there. And in a lot of instances, the kids don't tell the parents at all. They just pay and hope that it'll go away, but it never does.
Yeah, and it's not something that you need to be ashamed of. It's not something you need to feel dumb about. It's just you got caught in the web, and we're just trying to give people a heads up so they don't get caught in the web. But when they do, what should they do? What's the best thing to do internet-wise, security-wise, prosecution-wise, everything?
So step one, always go to law enforcement. You always want to do that to get that ball rolling so they can start the process of issuing subpoenas and trying to find out who's behind these accounts. The next piece of advice is just what we have dealt with at Bullyville that has worked time and time again. Stop communicating with that person immediately. It's not a girl, for starters. It's 9 out of 10 times a middle-aged 45-year-old guy who has no empathy or to care less about your child. Stop communicating and deny. You're going to release the picture? Fine, go ahead. With the advent of AI being on the internet, it's not me, it's someone else. That's my face on that body. You turn the tables on them.
Yeah, seriously. Let's take a look at an AI image versus a real image here. These deep fakes and all are so good. And so you can take a look at this. One of these is a fake image and one of them is real. This stuff is getting so good, these deep fakes and all. Can you tell which one is fake and which one is real?
I can because it's my wife. My beautiful wife.
It's difficult to tell. Which one do you think is real? How many think the one on the left is real? How many of you think the one on the right is real? Raise your hand. Which one's real, James?
The one on the left.
The one on the left is real. Okay. And seriously, your best approach when they tell you this is say, hey, send it out. I wish I looked like that.
That's right.
Send it out. Let me give you a list.
That's right.
And they're going to say, this guy's no fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and these stories it's a gauntlet of emotion as you listen to these stories, because I'm sure like everyone else in the audience, our hearts bleed for all of you, of course. But my mind after that goes to the revenge factor. I want to know who's doing this. You know, the FBI can only do so much. They do a great job, but if you're going to think you're going to identify an IP in the Philippines and extradite someone back, it's not going to happen. So that's really where I come in and locate these people. And, you know, sometimes you have to be a bully to beat a bully. And I bully these guys to the point of no return, you know, where they think twice about even getting on a keyboard ever again.
Yeah. And there have been a few of these identified from time to time with some help. And the image may be real, it may be fake, it may be half and half. You don't know.
Dr. Phil,
Please.
one important thing is local law enforcement has an older mindset when dealing with this a lot of times. And it starts off with just don't send the pictures as if that's the solution. We've got to realize that our teens are growing up in a different generation. That causes teens not wanting to come forward.
Yeah. Right.
And also, Dr. Phil, too, to add on to what Brandon is saying, when we, as law enforcement officers, tell our kids that, it creates an additional isolation. So you look at the different signs of suicide, and one of them is isolation. Not only are they providing the isolation beyond their social group, their family, but then law enforcement officers, because they are threatening that they'll send this image to the law enforcement officers. They are saying that they will be labeled a pedophile. They are creating that distance between them actually reporting something to law enforcement officers.
Yeah. The main thing is prevention.
Yeah.
Seriously, you got to talk to your teens. I don't care if it's your grandkids, nieces, nephews, your kids, your neighbor's kids, your friends' kids, because if they get a heads up about this ahead of time, it does so much good. And that's why we're doing this. I've said families are under attack, and it's coming from halfway around the world. And the best prevention that we've got is to talk about it, to put it out there, to say, look, if this happens, you don't want to get involved in it. If you do get involved in it, come and tell me. We'll handle it. We're in this together. Talk to your parents. Talk to a responsible adult, and they will help you. I promise you, whoever your mother and father is, they've done something that wasn't the best idea at the time they did it.
Yeah.
Trust me, we've all done things that we wish we hadn't done that seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yep.
And I'm so sorry that this happened in your life. I'm so sorry that it's happened in yours. But I am so grateful that you've honored me with your presence here and talking about this. And I'm so proud that you're dealing with this and helping these people that are coming to you. Before we go, I want to take time to honor James Woods and Gavin Guffey, who left the world way, way too soon. They are loved, and they will always be remembered.
I want every parent out there to look at Gavin as their kid, because that's what he was. He was the kid that makes you mad and grits your teeth, and he's the kid that makes you smile at the best times that you can be so proud of. To know that I raised a boy that only made it to 17, that had so many kids come up to me and say, Gavin helped me from committing suicide. I was in a dark space. Or I was the new kid at school that was just so down, and here come Gavin saying, hey, you ain't eating alone, come with me. And he wanted everyone having fun.
We had 17 and a half years of screaming and shouting and telling him he was awesome. My baby. He just made it easy to be his parents. I would do it all over again. So, this is who we are. We're not always sad, down, hiding.
Crying.
Sometimes we are, but there's joy in our hearts because he's still here. He is still in our hearts. He goes everywhere we go. Truly believe that.
My platform is yours. Anything I can do? My platform is yours. Anything I can do?